What's going on, Radiant Youth? My name is Aslan Canchola, and I am one of the Central Youth Pastors here at Radiant Church. And right now, we are in the middle of a series called Crazy Faith, where we are taking a look at the Gospel of Mark and learning what it means to believe, even when it's difficult. When I was in college, I remember I was visiting my mom at Christmas. Now, I love Christmas, but this year was a little hard and a little less jolly because it was the first year my dad wasn't going to be celebrating with us because my parents had just separated. My mom and I were packing my bags up so I can head back to school, and as we were talking, we ended up getting into a pretty big argument. Things got pretty intense, and I remember yelling, like big, full yelling voice, that I hated her. And I can clearly remember the look on her face and how hurt she was. And as soon as the words left my mouth, I instantly regretted it. Have you ever said something to a friend or maybe a sibling that you didn't mean? I mean, something that probably wasn't very kind. And the second you said it, you immediately regretted it? Maybe it wasn't exactly like my story, but think about it. Have you ever told a friend something, but it wasn't what you felt inside? Maybe you told someone that you agreed, but you really didn't. Or what about this? Maybe you told someone something was okay, but deep down it really bothered you and things weren't okay. Looking back, I still can't believe I said that to my mom. But can I tell you what I've learned over the years? Usually what comes out of our mouths is a reflection of what's in our hearts. I didn't really hate her, but I was so frustrated with my situation that I just didn't know what else to say. I couldn't find the right words in my heart to share with her. Sometimes we struggle to say things that are actually what's in our heart. We may joke, complain, or get angry with our words in ways that don't actually reflect a heart for Jesus. So my question for you today is this: do your words reflect a heart of faith in Jesus? Often we say we believe in him, but we speak and act in a way that doesn't reflect Jesus at all. Today, we're gonna look at the powerful connection between our words and our hearts. In 2 Corinthians 4:13, it says, "It is written, I believed, therefore I have spoken." Since we have that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak. This means that there is a direct response to our belief, our words. When we believe something in our heart, it will come out of our mouth. As I was thinking about the weight and importance of our words, I was reminded about a story in Mark 5. At this point in the Bible, Jesus was out speaking to crowds and performing miracles. And one day, as he was on his way to the next town, a big crowd had followed him and kind of turned just into this big moving mob. And in the middle of the crowd, there was a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. Think about that. Some of you aren't even 12 right now. It says in verse 26, she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. That's a pretty bold statement to make. She had heard all about the miracles he had performed up until this point, and she only had one choice: to have faith that she could be healed by Jesus too. Let's keep reading. Verse 29 says, immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Catch this. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet. Trembling with fear, she told him the whole truth. This is the main point, guys, so really lean in. Look at what happens in verse 34. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Wow. Let that story just sink in for a second. Daughter, your faith has healed you. She had such big faith that it moved her to action. It was incredible. But there's a little more that Jesus is teaching us through his encounter with the woman. Jesus is all-knowing, so when he asked, "Who touched my garment?" it wasn't because he didn't know about the woman. Every encounter he had was for more than just the person he interacted with. It was a lesson for all of us to understand his character and to teach us something. By asking who touched him in a busy crowd, he gave the woman the opportunity to not only believe in her heart, but also confess her faith with her mouth. And it's her humble response that provides a powerful lesson for us today, and that's this. There is amazing power when we not only believe in our hearts that what Jesus can do, but we also say it out loud. The woman took her faith from an internal belief to a confession of faith that benefited others. So, Pastor Aslan, how can I apply this to my life today? Proverbs 18:21 tells us that the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. When we recognize that there is power in our speech, we also need to remember that what we say carries weight. So how can we make this applicable every day? First, speak faithful words daily. Practice speaking words of faith. Take time this week to write down simple declarations on an index card or a sticky note. Things that say, I believe Jesus is with me, or I trust that God is working in my life. When you feel like you're losing faith, pull out that card and read it out loud. Speaking words of faith will help you shift your focus and remind you of who God is. Second, share a story about what God's done for you. Take a minute to share about your life and share about how God has made big works out of your faith. But here's the key thing. Don't just say it to yourself. Tell someone about it. It's important to share about the things God has done in our lives with friends or even in our small groups, because our faith can actually be used to encourage others. And lastly, reflect and ask, do I speak life or death over my life? Train your mind to begin speaking words of faith in life. God is honored when we use our words to glorify Him. And a great way to do this is tangibly with our new cutesy little wristbands you'll get from your small group leaders. When we confess with our mouth the faith we have in Jesus, our situations begin to change, even if our circumstances don't. Middle school besties, I've loved getting to share God's word with you this morning, and I hope you leave today feeling empowered to use your words and speak out boldly in faith in your life. I love you, Radiant Youth, and I hope you have your best Sunday yet.